people come with a lot of heavy baggage in terms of their psychological framework, and these are all the things that we have to deal with. We have to have a psychosocial worker on board who volunteers to assist us, because it's unbelievable how many young persons come with a need for this kind of help.
I hated me. I hated my life. Even if I had loving parents, it was like they had to love me because I'm their child, but the world could not see me for me.
Not everybody that can afford what they want. You may see that and you want it and you cannot afford it. Sometimes your family grew up in poverty, grew up with family that do not have, and then grow raised in poverty.
The question is, how can we change this? How can we move the vulnerable to a place of being empowered?
Not that it's saying too that people don't help. People usually do amidst limited resources and other difficulties that they might be facing, because you can't tell somebody to keep in front of their clay and they don't have a job. They're not getting the assistance in an issue. They might have a health issue and they might be able to pay for the expenditure. So we have to work hand in hand, state, civil society, community, for the development of the country. It can't be just a one-sided thing.
Well, this in Silver Lake, what I've seen, because when I entered, it was really bad because of the name they had given them. And then we started small. We started with the children first to get to the parents. And then when we started working together with Child Fund Caribbean and East Federation and other different groups, and then people will start to say how, they start to speak out, especially on the radio, on the television, to make people see the goodness, that is coming out of Silver Lake. You can see that positiveness about the community in terms of, they're trying. I cannot say they're not trying, but it have its ups and it have its downs.
I don't want to stay all my life living in the ghetto. I want to see that I step out from the ghetto, I have a job, I build my house, and I live happily ever.
I think that we really need to give a bigger voice to the persons on the ground, that they feel part of the process, that they feel empowered. A layman person can offer advice in terms of policy.
One of the things in terms of our empowering and basis and sort of versus what obtains on the facility and the resources, definitely there's a huge gap as to how you use the resources to actually meet the needs of the vulnerable.
What I can tell you, the people that living in the poor areas try their best to get out of the poor area. So even though like they working, not going with them, they know other means and ways of making money for them to come out from that life.
I think people try to handle the vulnerable conditions. What happens sometimes is that the help might take a long time. Due to maybe the governmental machinery, things don't just happen one time. So it takes some time, and sometimes persons don't understand that.
Our hearts sometimes break because on the spot they need help now, not long term. They need help now. They need food in their belly, they need food in their children's bellies. And long term we have to look at what measures we can take to move you out of that situation and into a situation of empowerment.
But often, moving to a situation of empowerment comes with its own levels of complications. Complications which many believe require stronger inclusion and complete collaboration to develop lasting and meaningful solutions.
Communities, in terms of the participatory role and what impedes them, is that there's a high level of dependency on government and government official. The government will come and do that, and the government will do that, and what have you. Or if the facilities are there, then we don't manage it in an efficient and effective way because it was given to us by the government. So the process of getting persons to buy in and accept has been set aside, and to a certain extent, and that is what I'm saying, because I know I'm documented, I blame the government for doing that, because development is a process, and if we remove one or two stages of that process, it sort of disfranchise the individuals in participating in the development, their own development. Communities have a lot of resources, and we've not been able to tap into those resources, both human and natural resources.
One of the critical aspects of the tourism master plan is community tourism, participation of rural communities in the tourism development program. And we've been able to, over the last few years, assist the communities in developing community tourism groups to ensure that individuals in the rural communities can benefit from tourism by providing services to the sector.
Babono, for example, this community, we're now working on a number of rural tourism activities. In the community of Debara, way to the extreme, they call it Barbados. When you leave Castries and you drive to Debara, it's like you drive into Barbados. There are a lot of natural resources. The Turtle Watch, they have Turtle Watch, they have bird watching, they have the opportunities for a number of natural rural programs, tourism programs.
Before the Turtle Watch started, very few people knew about turtle sandplantas. When the program started, it brought Debara on the map. It got Debara on the international map. And what it did, it really got the young people to a point that they believed in themselves and they could make a difference in their lives. And a lot of the young people were looking forward to earn a living out of tour guiding and throughout the turtle season, which is from March until November.
Honestly, you cannot just take up a young person and say, I will do this for you. The person should be involved. You cannot do it for me. You have to join with me to get it done. And I see no reason just telling somebody, oh, I need you to do this. You have to do it. But what if I have something that I want to do? Because I'm the person living with a disability. The disability is not living by itself. You got to put the person first and then the disability. Because if you didn't have the person, you would not have the disability.
But ask those directly, and they too have issues with perception, which affects levels of inclusion and involvement.
Through the MANI program, I started off at the Government Information Service. While I was there, I wrote in an application to do something else in a hotel. And I got the interview through the application. It was exciting. But from the time that interviewer saw me, his whole expression changed, you know. I came in the interview and he was looking at my hand through the entire interview. I'm trying to speak to him and you can see he's not focused on me, you know, and leaving that interview, the only thing I can do was cry, you know, and then, you know, I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do what I have to do. And I went ahead and I worked hard. I showed all my skills, everything that I knew and learned within the 2 years that I got something to do. I worked double shift. I gave all my weekends, all my holidays, I worked extra. I got myself involved in everything, and because of that, I got opportunities because they saw that I could have done something. They saw my energy, they saw what I really wanted.
Dominica is all dealing with where you're from. Yeah, in like the system from you coming in a ghetto, it's like the system telling you you're a ghetto person, you use the ghetto you have to stay in. And so you kind of rise from the ghetto. Yeah. I tried to go and get a job, but I showed them all my qualifications, my CXCs, and they tell me they will call me back. Mostly all work sites I when they tell me they'll call me back, and I never get a call. Because I say I'm from Silver Valley, and that's what I think. Because if I told them I was from Goodwill, they would have easier give it to me.
I used to, planting like marijuana and things, weed, right? And then I get caught up, went to prison. That's the most difficult thing I ever, went to prison. Yeah, that's the only difficult thing I ever went. And I don't want to end up that way again, go back to prison, I don't want to go back into the farming of marijuana, so during a day around, I'm trying to get, I will get a little walk around, laboring and so on, and so.
The other thing I have noticed is that persons feel a bit of disempowered in the decision making at the government level, that there's not enough discussion and there's not enough involvement.
Well, we do not have, as far as I can see, and that's my personal opinion, except through the poverty assessment process, we do not have a system where the voices of the persons who are on the ground feeds up into planning. It's more or less from the top-down approach. That is something that I think needs to be changed.
If the involvement is there, it's at a tokenist level and it's not full participatory. If recommendations are made, then they are not followed through. So how do we plan, or how do I normally engage the individuals? Is looking at the group structure.
From a community standpoint, it's always interesting to get the gatekeepers on board, identify the gatekeepers. Not easy. The hardest thing to do is to identify the gatekeepers.
One of the experiences that I had working in the Groseley community, which is one of the most affluent communities, I try to use the affluent individuals to support the non-affluent. So one of the things that I did was that there's a group in Groseley, they call the Growell Center. They were receiving from all of the hotels in the north $1 US per visitors. So that money would go into that group to support the vulnerable. So they had all this money just stacking up, and they were not able to utilize the money. When I became the officer, one of the things that I did was to create a revolving credit fund, so that the young people that were sitting by the road and whatever, and they had some of the constraints that we described earlier, they were able to do crochet. And it sells a lot because it's unique, it's handmade, so people would pay a fortune for that. So they would form themselves into 5 members in a group, and they would all borrow. And they would support each other in terms of, if you cannot pay a loan this month, we all come together pitching and we pay for you. So that is still working in Groseley.
And every day when I wake up, well, today I didn't go anywhere, but from last week I was looking for a job thing. Yeah, still going around, still searching. I just came out on the 4 months computer literacy course, and many of my classmates that was doing the program with me got attachments. Some companies even hold them, so that made me feel bad, and that made me feel like my mother time was wasting, because she was expecting me to get a job as well. Yeah, but nothing didn't really work out.
Why do you say your mother's time was wasted? What did your mother do to help you in the course?
Well, she had to, first of all, get the money to pay it, and that was like $170. Yeah, so she had to work, get the money for me to do it, and we paid the money, and it's like her work time just going in vain. She could maybe use the money to do something else, or use the work time to do something else. But she actually worked hard to get that money to give me for me to do that, so I can at least help myself. But nothing didn't really happen.
Now, after you've empowered me with that skill, I have to sort of design the program in such a way to say to you that going out and getting a job is not the answer. You now have to find, and you have the support system where you link the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Agriculture, the National Skills Development Center. So it's just a matter of linking the agencies and say, okay, these are the individuals, or those are the individuals we were able to train, and they have the skills where they can do, I don't know, toys, something. And we now have to come out with the policy to support them. Because doing all of that and you don't have the enabling environment, it's of no use. And I think this is where we're lacking.
The only thing I could say to help myself is like, if I get a start, you know, to start it, to do something, like, you know, I help, if I get a help, like, to me, you know, to do something for myself, well,
Like what?
Well, at least, if I get a walk and I could say, well, alright then, get a little money, I could buy animals, rail it, you know, start. Probably I could pick up something from that.
Given the number of persons who are gravitating towards the National Employment Program, towards the small business facility, that persons are really seeking to empower themselves.
For instance, we went to a community called Moye in St. Andrew, and this was the third time in 3 years we've gone, and each and every time it has gotten more and more solid, and they are the ones now demanding, when you're coming back, we would need to have that discussion about some program that they're looking at. And they are now coming to the table and telling us what they need. And that is always the better approach. Get a sense of what the community needs as opposed to us telling them what they need.
But first, I think we need to promote back civil society. Civil society, I mean that they need to have more community groups forming in communities, and some of the assistants go through them.
One of the things that we are doing is uniting together government agencies, NGOs, to have a voice in what is going on here and to highlight and emphasize the struggles that exist. We are ensuring that persons are getting help in as many ways as possible. Of course, funding is critical. Funding is critical, and we have to find innovative ways to come up with some funding, because we know that government cannot provide everything. We have to come up with innovative ways to get funding to help in some of these programs that we need to exist.
I think the most important thing, I think they need to come on the ground more often and ask questions and not make promises that they cannot keep. Because most of the time they make promises and they cannot keep it. Even with different individuals that would come to the ghetto areas and then they would say they would bring that and they would never see them. But the thing about me, the difference for me, I came and I never left.